Our knowledge of God produces strength in the life of a believer. Our relationship with God is where we derive strength and energy from. To know God, you must know His nature. To know God, you must know His character. It is true that the Lord is the I am that I am. Are you not aware that there is also a nature called the Abba? The Father, the Source, the Sustainer. The will of God is where protection is. The will of God is where power is. The power of God is in the office of the will of God. Put your hands together for Jesus Christ. Are you happy to be in the presence of God? Are you happy? Are you sure? Put your hands together for Jesus Christ. Greet the neighbor beside you. Say, good morning and win today. Greet another neighbor beside you. Say, good morning and win today. The one at the back of you, say, good morning and win today. Greet the viewers watching you right now from different continents. Good morning and win today. Say, you viewers are loved by God. Say, I, standing in the presence of God, I am loved by God. Are you sure? Yes, many of you may not know that you are loved by God. Some know. They say, if I'm loved by God, why am I going through these challenges? Let me tell you, whatever you are going through, I want to whisper it to you again. You are loved by God. Tell yourself, say, I am loved, helped by God. Are you sure? Celebrate Jesus Christ. Daniel chapter 11. Daniel 11 and verse 32. Daniel 11 and verse 32. Daniel 11 and verse 32. Are you there? If you are there, say thank you, Jesus. Say thank you, Jesus. I read. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God, they shall be strong, and they shall carry out great exploits. Is it in your Bible? The part B of that verse. It says, for the people that do know their God, they shall do what? They shall be what? Strong. And secondly, they shall do what? Exploits. For the people that do know their God. My question for you, do you know your God? Do you know your God? Remember, the Bible never says for the people that don't know God. I hope you understand. There is God. There is your God. There is what? God. And there is what? My God. For the people that do know their God, that is a person encounter. Not the people that do know their neighbor's God. You may know your neighbor's God as a God of signs and wonders. You may know my God, the God of Evangelist Gostime, God of Prophet T.B. Joshua, is a wonder-working God. Yes or no? But my question, do you know your own God? It said, for the people that do know there is personality in dealing with God. Our relationship with God is not generalized. It is a personal encounter. For you to get strength and capacity, you must know your God. For you to have strength and capacity, energy and stamina to finish the race, you must know your what? Your God. Personally, you must know it for yourself. That is why Paul make it clear. It says salvation is personal. You don't run salvation race for your children. You don't run it for your wife. You don't run it for your future husband. You say, I want to be saved so that when I get married, my husband too will be saved. No. For the people that do know his or her God, what will be the reward? That person will derive strength, energy in this journey. Remember, our strength is the fuel of our destiny. The Bible says, if you faint in the days of adversity, it's as a result of what? Your strength is small. If you faint in time of challenges, it's a sign that your strength is what? Small. If you faint in the midst of your problem, if you faint in the midst of chaos of life, is a sign that your strength is what? Small. Proverbs 24 and verse 10. That means as we live on earth, there are days called the days of adversities. There are days called the days of challenges. This is why we need strength. It is impossible for you to go through this life, whether you love God, you hate God, whether you are righteous or you are a sinner. It has nothing to do with the days of adversity. Whether you are holy or pure, sincere or insincere, the Bible already gave you a prophetic word in that book of Proverbs 24 and verse 10. It said, if you faint in the days, that means in a believer's life, there are days called the days of challenges. In a believer's journey, there is a season called the period of challenges. This is why the book of Daniel encourages you that the only way to survive that days of challenges is that you must know your God personally. You must know what? Your God personally. If you don't know God personally, if you don't have a personal relationship with God, in that days where things are not the way you plan it, in that days where all your expectations fail, in that days where everyone that has promised you fail, what will you hope on? What will you hope on? Where will you hang your belief if you don't know God personally? Our knowledge of God produces strength in the life of a believer. Our relationship with God is where we derive strength and energy from. Are you with me? You get strength, you get stronger in this kingdom of God by your relationship and your knowledge about God. A Christian that don't press to know God. A Christian that is not striving to know God for himself. It is possible you can be a Christian and without still knowing God, the only thing you will lack is you will be weak. You can be in this auditorium and you may not know the owner of this place, yes or no. But the relationship with the owner gives you strength and capacity, knowing that you have a firm relationship with the owner. I hope you understand. So, for the people that know God, what will you benefit? Strength for this journey. Do you have strength? Are you gassing out in your journey with the Lord? When you started where? What is happening to your strength? What is happening to your passion? What is happening to your hunger for God? Are you sure you know God personally? Or you are only following our God, you don't have relationship with your God. You can follow my God and yet not know your God. You can accept my God and yet don't have personal relationship with your God. You can know your man of God's God and not know your God. You are surprised. Yes, it is possible for you to accept our God. Even you don't know that God personally. This is where Romans 5 came from. It said there is peace of God and there is peace with God. They are not the same thing. Peace of God is what my God can give you, but my God cannot give you peace with God. The healing you are here to receive is peace of God. Deliverance is peace of God. Miracles, peace of God. But not peace with God. Not what? Peace with God. To have peace with God. This has to do with a relationship of making your way plain before God. There are many Christians who have peace of God, but does not have peace with God. They have the peace of God. When we pray now, you will see the rain of God's blessing coming down. People being healed, manifestation here and there. This is peace of God. It is not coming because of your own righteousness, but because of our covenant with God. You receive that. Are you with me? It comes because of our covenant with God and our foundation. You receive that. That is of God. But what was with God? For the people that do know their God, they shall be what? Strong. Strong. And they shall do exploit. Doing exploit means if you know your God, it is impossible to be small. If you know your God, it is impossible to remain at your current level. If you know your God genuinely, you are destined to do greater things. That is exploit. Do you know your God? Ask your neighbor. Say, neighbor, do you know your own God? I can't hear you. Say, neighbor, do you know your own God? Daniel made it personal. He said, for the people that know his or her God, you are entitled to two things: strength and progress. Strength and progress. Now, what do we know about God? And how do we know our God? How do we know our God? Because if I don't know this God, or I only know him partially, we all know that half education is dangerous. What is not done well is not done at all. How do we know God? There are two principal things you must know about God. There are two particular revelation you must have about God. Number one, his nature. His what? His nature. To know God, you must know his nature. To know God, you must know his character. If you don't know the nature of God, Satan will continue to cheat you. If you don't know the nature of God, Satan will continue to take advantage of your life. A man who lives in fear is a report that he does not know the nature of God. A man who lives in fear is a sign that that man or woman lack the understanding of the nature of God. Someone comes to you and said, look, the Lord wants to kill you. I'm seeing this thing happening to you. You're about to die. Because you don't know the nature of God, you will be afraid. It is true that the Lord is mighty in battle. It is true that the Lord is the I am that I am. Are you not aware that there is also a nature called the Abba? The Father, the source, the sustainer of every good thing. That he is not only a warrior, he is also my Father. He is a warrior to others, but he is a father to me. I ask you, no matter how stubborn your child is, have you thrown that child away? Say, you have wronged God, you will die. This is, every sinner are going to hell. Yeah, sincerely, I know. Thank you for your prophecy, but I know God. I know my God. I know my God. He said his mercies are new every morning. He said, I have loved you with an everlasting love, and I have drawn you with my loving kindness. This is a nature. I have loved you with an what? Everlasting love. And I have drawn you with my loving kindness. This is the nature of God that God himself cannot deny. When David wronged God, the prophet came to him. He said, choose for yourself. Can we hand over you to your enemy for 3 days? Or we let God deal with you? David said, me, my enemy, never. I know my God. I prefer God dealing with me than man to deal with me. If you don't know the nature of God, you will continue to live in fear. They say, they are killing people in your family. They have killed 9, remain 2. We don't know who else. Inside me and you, who is going? If you are not valuable, why should God send his only begotten son to die for you? Is there any other love greater than that? A man who have only one son at that time, because of the love he has for the people, he said, my son, I love you so much, but what do we do now? Can you pay this sacrifice? If you have one child, can you do what God did? If God tell you only your only son, can you sacrifice? You say, God, I think that pastor that said those things is demonic. He's sent from the pit of hell to tell me my only son. I don't think, no. This is not our standard. Bible is our standard. Are you with me? Will you then see the sacrifice and the love that God has for man? That means love is his nature. When you understand the nature of God, you will know that no matter the challenges you are facing, I will always go back to God. Like the prodigal son, when he got to the point of hunger, he said, I will return back to my father. I cannot die here in suffering when my father has many hired servants he's taking care of. Let me arise and go back to my father, because I know the nature of my father. My father is a forgiving master. My father is a loving father. My father takes care of servants. What of me, the son? The nature of God. When you have this nature, condemnation leave your heart. When you have this nature, you will know that as God was creating the day, he has you in his interest. He said, today is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad. Why are you rejoicing and glad? Because the Father has your interest in mind. The Father consider my own interest while making the day. Today was not created without my own interest being added, because he's a loving Father. If we, wicked men and women, can take care of our children, how much more God? We are limited because we don't understand the nature of God. Many of you have been condemning yourself. What kind of life am I living safe? Everything is just bad. Everything is just not working. And when God is considering your request, he's telling you, my daughter, I'm working out the answer slowly but surely. The solution may not just be once. Sometimes the answer to our prayer, some people come and today they just attend the service. They receive testimony. Say, I'm the one that bring this person to church. Oh, when will my own happen? Hey, God of TB Joshua. I know that man. Oh. I hope you understand. Then you begin to ask yourself, when will my own come? When you know the nature of God, you will know that your request is being granted slowly but surely. Knowing the nature of God, remove the pressure that comes from society. Remove the pressure that comes from Satan. Remove the pressure that comes from life. Because I know I am his child. Why should I be under pressure? A child depends on his parent totally, not partially. My sufficiency comes from God. God is not only my father. When I call him my father, that means I'm calling him my source. A father is a source. A father is a sustainer. A father is a defender. A father is a provider. God is my source, my sustainer, my provider, and not only providing, he also defends whatever he has provided. I hope you understand. I don't only know the nature of God to be a provider. If God provides for you, make sure he's there to defend it. Because Satan will ask you, lift up your head, O ye gates. He say, who is this? Who is this? Who is this that want to pass? Because the world will ask you, life will ask you, that by what authority do you get this breakthrough? By what authority do you rise? By what authority do you marry? By what authority do you start having children? Who tell you in Akwa Ibom, you don't survive like that? Is that you marry and don't have children? Is that you have children and don't have money? If God is your father, he will provide the children, the money, and defend it for you. That is what God can do for you. He is not only the source, but is also the defender of whatever he gives you. Do you know the nature of God? Are you only seeing God like that man that is sent to destroy, to kill? Yes, there is a dimension of God that is for warfare. He's God the righteous judge. He's God the mighty man in battle. Yes, but to me, I have found a nature in him. His goodness, his loving kindness, his mercy, and his forgiving nature. It matters the nature of God you know. It matters a lot. It matters when we see us moving like this. Not because there are no challenges, because there is a revelation that has come upon us that we know that his love is everly chasing after me. Secondly, for you to know your God, you must know the will of who? Of God. You must know the will of God. Do you know God's will for your life? You don't know God when you don't know his will. It is not enough to just know God. We must press to also know his will for our life. Because in God's will is our protection. When you are in the will of God, you are protected. When you are in the will of God, you are secured. When you are in the will of God, you will stand to the end. Anyone that finishes a race is within the circumference of the will of God. God's power cannot work except in the will of God. Are you with me? God does not guarantee you his power. God does not guarantee you his authority unless you are in the circumference of where? His will. The Bible says, I have given you power to walk upon snakes and scorpions, to trample upon anything, it shall not hurt you. Listen to me, that the Bible says it does not mean it will work for you if you are not in the will of God. Do you see the mistake people are making? You go to your idol in the village and say, your idol, you have to leave this house today. Today is today. And you are not walking in the will of God. And you come back from that idol place with one leg. And you are wondering, how come? Does it mean it works for man of God? It doesn't work for me. The will of God is where protection is. The will of God is where power is. The power of God is in the office of the will of God. Are you with me? The power of God is where? In the office of the will of God. The Bible says you pray and you did not receive because you pray amiss. You pray out of patterns. You pray out of the will of God. So man can be praying, but not according to the will of God. Man can be sowing seed in the house of God, but not even according to the will of God. Have you not seen people that go to church to sow seed for their neighbor to die? This is seed of clear them all. Seed of total elimination. Seed of everlasting elimination. And God is saying, what kind of seeds are these? Kill them. Seed to rise above everyone. And God said, no. We rise by loving our neighbor. We rise by helping one another. That desperation, that zeal, that motive in your heart is corrupted. Your value is in the will of God. Your greatness is in the will of God. That things are good now does not mean they are the will of God. Yes, that things look glittering, flashy, does not mean it is God's will for your life. Everything is nice, everything is wonderful, does not mean it is the will of God. Your protection, your longevity in life is only in the will of God. Prophet T.B. Joshua says, great man can only stand in that position of greatness as long as God holds you in it. You only remain useful here on earth. You only remain valuable. You only remain protected as long as God keeps you there. For God to keep you there, He keeps you according to the will of God. You need grace if you want to be a finisher of this race. Christians, it is not enough to know the nature of God. You must know the will of God. And oftentimes, the will of God is not always what you plan. It's not always the way you plan it. It's not always the way you want it. It can look foolish at the beginning, but brothers and sisters, obey it. Obey it. It can look ugly at beginning, but obey it. It can look bitter at beginning, but obey it. That is where your protection is lying. That is where your security lies. That is where your glory and your relevance in this kingdom lies. Cannot understand, comprehend the things of God. People of God, what instruction have you disobeyed today that you are paying the dear price for it? It's not too late to ask for mercy. It's not too late to ask for mercy and reverse. Jonah disobeyed and paid dearly by staying and having accommodation inside the stomach of a fish for 3 days. Disobeying the will of God can cost you your life, if not bring you back. Sometimes bring you back if you are even lucky, or otherwise take your life. Ask Jonah and he will tell you. You need grace for total surrender. You need grace for total surrender to his way. May God bless his word in the midst of your heart. In Jesus' name. Listen. Those who can dance are dancing their way to testimony. Those who can dance, you are dancing. As you are dancing, you are adding more to it. You are adding more to it. Give her the song.
You've been good at before. You can do it again. Send God right now. Send God again. You've been good at before. You can do it again. Send God right now. Send God again.
free now. Blood pressure is over now. Sickness is over now. Attacks are over now. Go and check. You have been favored. Tomorrow, when you get to your working place, you begin to hear congratulations. I say congratulations. I, your pastor, I am greeting you first. Congratulations. I say congratulations. Hey, congratulations. I say congratulations. Greet someone, say congratulations. Shake someone, say congratulations. Say congratulations. Congratulations. I am the first to congratulate you. I am the first to congratulate you. Congratulations. Congratulations.